My art has opened doors I never dreamed possible growing up as a child in La Plata, New Mexico. Growing up on the farm taught me amazing things. I learned a great deal, but it really didn't come natural for me to be on the farm. It was really clear that I wanted something bigger. I really wanted to travel. An artist has always got to be willing to step out of their comfort zone. You don't jump from the farm to Bali without some sense of adventure. It's what forces us to grow up. That's what makes us better. It's by trying subjects they've never tried before. My first trip to Europe was a gift to myself on my 40th birthday. I spent 2 months in Paris, and it was awesome. I always wanted to paint in Cornwall, mostly because I'm a huge fan of the artist of the Newland School. Venice was another one of my childhood dreams. All of my artist heroes have painted in Venice. As a child, I remember my excitement when we studied the exploration of the Spanish into the Southwest. When I experienced Toledo, I realized that I actually wanted to do a painting of the Spanish conquistadors discovering Grand Canyon. I have painted in Prague, I've painted in Budapest, but I really wanted to paint in Vienna. The Kunst Historical Museum has a great display of arms and armor from the 16th century. My first painting trip to Canada was in 1976. I fell in love with the Banff region and the Canadian Rockies, and I have returned many, many times to paint. Every great American landscape painter has at some point attempted Niagara Falls. It was really important to me that I try my hand at that subject. The starting point for the Coronado expedition was in Cruz de Guanajuato. I felt it very necessary to go there and visit and paint. I really enjoyed painting the activity of the fish market. There was an energy and love about the small village that I really wanted to capture and paint. My study of the conquistadors continued in Mexico City. I wanted to visit their art and history museums, which, by the way, were really good. I had a real desire to paint a nocturne of San Felipe's Chapel. I have loved painting archaeological sites throughout the world, inspired by my memories of Mesa Verde as a child. I started painting Monument Valley in the early 70s, and I've returned many times to paint the magic of that place. I keep a close eye on the seasons, and the moment the spring blossoms appear, I paint. In the 1990s, I spent a great deal of time painting in California. I always wanted to visit the rose gardens at Bouchard. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me paint, so I settled in and sketched. But I felt redeemed when I found a wonderful rose garden at the Empress Hotel. The garden gave me a sense of the air, the light, and the color, so I could do a large painting at home. I discovered the gardens at Hatley Castle at the Royal Roads University. I spent a really wonderful day painting the Japanese water gardens. I discovered China Beach and found myself entranced by the sea-washed logs. As a subject matter, I preferred the hustle and bustle of the Upper Harbor. With memories lingering from 1976, I decided to revisit Seattle and create new memories. For me, the best education of any subject is to simply draw or paint it. We spent a really lovely day watching the eclipse and painting as Snoqualmie falls. Tom and I then ferried over to the San Juan Islands. Jensen's boatyard at Friday Harbor appealed to me greatly. There is an artistic integrity about painting a working harbor. I painted a view of Crystal Cove off the deck of my friends Greg and Sandy. I was overlooking the Strait of the Juan de Fuca and could actually see whales playing in the harbor. Shortly after high school graduation, with only $10 and quarters to my name, I found my way to Grand Canyon. Canyon was so huge and so vast, and my youthful attempt at painting so humiliating, that it soon found its way in flight over the edge. At that moment, I vowed never to allow Grand Canyon to intimidate me again. And it has become a challenge of a lifetime. I have spent thousands of hours in painting trying to understand Grand Canyon. Painting trips over these many years have allowed me to experience its many moods, its light and its seasons. I spent 4 days on a 28 by 28 inch canvas at Navajo Point. I start by washing the canvas with gum turpentine and poppy seed oil. I like to start a canvas with as little friction as possible. I find the center by Xing the canvas using a measuring tape. I establish vertical and horizontal divisions along the golden section. I always draw in a horizontal line to establish my horizon. I prefer to draw using a long-handled brush. I first establish enough of the major shapes to know that my composition is going to work. Knowledge of the geology is critical at this point. I try to define the atmosphere of the day and start with a clear mental image of the painting I'm going to complete. Sketches and/or previous small paintings allow me to make decisions to start the painting early in the day. I try to see the canyon before me as a vertical jigsaw puzzle. A solid drawing will emerge if you pay attention to the positive and negative shapes before you. I only work on a canvas for 4 hours per day, but I try to stay true to the colors and shapes of the third hour of the first day. I am a direct painter. I try to paint each shape with its own specific color, value, and edges. The season's first snow drew me to Grand Canyon to paint December the 16th, 2013, and I hiked out to Yaqui Point. I started an 8 by 10 inch canvas panel. I watched, painted, and photographed an amazing storm. The shadows of the canyon were a very cool phthalo blue. I worked rapidly to capture the moments that I was experiencing. My instincts told me that this would make a great large painting. Upon my return to the studio that evening, I saved samples from my working palette from that day. Some paintings take years to complete, and 4 years later, I worked out a composition for a tenebristic spectacle. I used time-honored compositional divisions of space, my topographical maps, and my photographic reference before deciding on a 48 by 72 inch canvas. Without a work table large enough, I used my studio floor to stretch large canvases. My composition would include Zoroaster and the Zoroaster complex of temples. Brahma would sit behind Zoroaster and be partially obscured by clouds. I planned for Summer Butte on the left. Dominating the center of the canvas would be Bradley Point. It would also serve as a visual pivot point for the composition, and Desmarais Point to the right. I started with the concepts of the whirling square rectangle. Incredibly, it feels like the whirl of a seashell. With its ratio of 1.618, I first placed Zoroaster Temple along the vertical division and laying out the inner gorge along the horizontal division. I try to see the finished painting in the color that I am mixing. I tried to match the color from my saved palette from 2013. I mixed large quantities of color strings corresponding to the major shapes and atmospheric progressions of light to dark values related to each plane. Tom and I really don't need ice cream, so I have just simply commandeered the freezer for all of my palettes. I replenish my working palettes from the freezer palettes as needed throughout the completion of my painting. I started with the sky and worked forward. As the temples and the storm took shape, this painting took on a life of its own. I was modeling the forms in a realistic manner, with the pronounced contrast in light and shadow, referred to as chiaroscuro. I started to feel as if the temples had Caravaggio-like personalities, set against the mysterious shadows of winter. Michelangelo Caravaggio was an Italian painter working from 1590 to 1610. Caravaggio's style is referred to as tenebrism or dramatic illumination. Sometimes it is very difficult but necessary to get all of my art photographed, but I have trusted Tom Alexander in Flagstaff, Arizona for over 25 years to do just that. Each and every painting has its own story, and the frame is added to complete that story. The frame for Tenebristic Spectacle was custom built for me by America West Frames. I designed the molding and it is milled exclusively for me. I am involved in every step of the creation of the frame. I select my own clay colors and I assist in the burnishing and patinas. I selected a sgraffito pattern that reminded me of the clouds in Tenebristic Spectacle. Again, using the studio floor, it is always my choice to install the paintings myself. I feel like I'm an American painter. I have loved Grand Canyon since the moment I laid eyes on it, and I've got much more to say about it. But I hope the history will look back with favor on the entire body of my work.